Welcome back. Now, I want to remind you to email any questions or concerns or comments that you have about the Kilncast today to kilncast at montevallo.edu. Now, we'll see a quick view of our beautiful campus here on the University of Montevallo.
Founded in 1896, the University of Montevallo's mission is to provide students an affordable, small college, public, higher education with a strong emphasis on undergraduate liberal studies. Located in the town of Montevallo, just south of Birmingham, Alabama, the university is home to 3,100 students and is spread out across a 160-acre main campus noted for its unparalleled beauty. Montevallo's white columned buildings, famous red brick streets, beautiful lawns, colorful flower beds, and stately trees surround students with academic tradition. The core of the campus has even been designated as a National Historic District. So what is Montevallo? Montevallo is brick streets, creativity, college night, the Falcons, opportunity, community, tradition. Montevallo is home.
Earlier, we talked to Dr. Don Wood. Now we'll learn a little bit more about the history of Anagama.
This is a storage jar from the Echizen kilns in west central Japan. Dates to about the year 1500 or so. And what's really important and wonderful about this piece is the colors on the glazes, the blues and the grayish whites that you see. This is all natural. It's the result of the wood ash settling on the piece during the firing. Usually you'll get green, greenish browns and things like that, and to come up with the blue and the white is just really almost miraculous. This would have been a very, very special piece when they unloaded the kiln to see that these colors came out this way. The Anagama, the technology for the Anagama was introduced to Japan sometime in the 5th or 6th century from China and Korea. There was a huge influx of cultural influence from the mainland to Japan at that time, and many of these advanced technologies were picked up by the Japanese. And also there were a lot of Korean and Chinese potters working in Japan at that time as well. So it's a technology that is, 1,1600 years old now in Japan. And it has evolved. Anagama, the name literally means cave kiln, and some of the more ancient ones, they literally dug caves into the sides of hillsides, and that was the kiln itself. Of course, now they tend to be just built on a flat surface with fire bricks that form the shape of the Anagama. But you'll still see them built into hillsides also, where that provides a natural draw for the flame and the ash to be brought up. This is also from the Echizen kilns, mid-19th century or so. And this unassuming little jar was one of the most popular Echizen pieces for every woman in Japan. In Japanese, it's known as an ohaguro tsubo, which means a tooth black jar. And women in ancient Japan, before they opened up to the West in the mid-19th century, a married woman would blacken her teeth after she was married. And in a little jar like this would be kept the tooth black. In an Anagama, it is purely, sort of accidental science. Every time you fire a kiln, you learn more about that particular kiln, where it's best to place the pieces, what kind of wood to use, what time of year it's best to fire also, because all those things will affect on what happens in the kiln and how the pieces turn out. This is a little seed storage jar from the Bizen kilns. Bizen is in the central part on the east coast of the main island of Honshu in Japan. It dates to about, the 16th or 17th century. And Bizen is very famous for its unglazed pieces. There's no natural wood ash on them or anything, and yet we see amazing color combinations and patterns in a piece like this. This is a technique that's known as hirasuke bizen, which means basically ghost images. And how it's achieved, they take the straw from rice after it's dried, and they soak it in seawater, so it's very, very salty, and then they wrap it around these pieces, and during the firing of the kiln, it burns away, and it leaves these patterns that we see. And they're still doing this today, but they don't take the care and the time that they did in the early times. For example, in this one, the patterning is all over the inside and even on the bottom. So this piece was completely wrapped in the soaked straw. Nowadays, they'll just do it on the outside to give it, you know, a wonderful color, but it's not as elaborate as this is. I'm not quite sure when the first Anagama kiln was built in the United States. My guess would be sometime in the 20th century. There are Anagama kilns around the United States. I mean, we have, what, 2 here in Alabama that I know of. I know there's a really successful one in Minnesota. There are some in California and up in New England as well. So it's a tradition that is, you know, getting new life by moving here to the United States. Not that it's dying out in Japan at all. It's not. I mean, it's tremendously popular in Japan and is used everywhere. These are also from the Bizen kilns. They date to the 17th century or so, and they're known as meimei-zara. And these were special little plates for the tea ceremony that they would have served a little snack on during the tea ceremony. They are very, very special. There's only one other set known, and that set is in the museum at the Bizen kiln site. They were after this effect. They knew how to achieve these different marks on this. So each one is, you know, they're basically the same, but each one's different in its own right also. I had one colleague at one point say, mud pies with handles. And I said, yes, but what mud pies and what handles? They're really very, very special set. You'll see the little indentation in each one. That's just so they're not perfect. Each one has its own character, its own personality.
Yet its name, it's called, here on campus, it's called the Fat Bastard. So how did it get that name?
Well, all Anagama kilns have a name, and most of them are nice names. But when Scott was building this one, I guess it just was finally getting on his nerves, so he said, it's that fat bastard out in the woods. So it got to be this, and it's kind of fat when you look at it. Its shape is kind of bulbous, but the kiln is shaped inside like the flame on a candle. From the wick, it bulges out and it comes to a point. That's exactly the shape of, that the flame takes and the path of the flame inside the kiln. So it's the Japanese style to have this flame-shaped thing. So most of them are named after, you know, fire associated things, or maybe after the region that they're in, but this one just kind of got to be that fat bastard.
And so tell us a little bit about what's going on inside. I know that y'all are preparing pieces and, you know, trying to pick the place to put them. So, and I know earlier you were down at the beginning of the bastard. So tell us a little bit about what y'all are doing right now.
Okay, what we're doing right now is we're placing pieces of pottery like this tree mug by Montserrat on soft brick. This is a brick that the glaze won't stick to, so we'll just sit this up on the brick, or we might lay it down on its side on a brick, and that keeps it from sticking to the shelf when the glaze runs down. Okay, there are about 400 cubic feet of space inside this kiln, and we have to fill it with all shapes and sizes of pieces. So as the shelves are stacked in there, then we find just the right piece that goes in that spot. So Scott, Dr. Meyer inside will say, give me something about like this. And so we run out and find something that'll fit in that spot. And that's what we're doing inside.
Okay. And about how many pieces can you fit into the kiln?
Okay, now that's a trick, because like I said, it's about 400 square feet, and you know, it's a foot by a foot. Okay, so it could be 800 pieces, as many as 800 pieces, and it depends on the sizes.
Okay. So it's kind of just like putting a puzzle together. You're just finding the pieces where they fit.
But the beauty of it is the puzzle doesn't have the same pieces every firing. You have to figure it out each time.
That's true. So each one is going to be different. Well, Teresa, thank you so much. Right now we're going to go down to Tamika.
We also visited Dr. Chris Greenman from Alabama State in one of his studios.
My name is Chris Greenman. I teach at Alabama State University here in Montgomery. I guess I'm trying to find my way looking at Menge pottery, folk pottery tradition of Japan, and you know, seeing how that's manifest in the United States in contemporary pottery. So I make functional forms. I'm interested in kind of pattern and decoration on my forms using texture. Most of my forms are functional, not all of them are, but a lot of them are. You know, it's not nostalgia, it's more about the whole process. You know, what the long process of a long firing can do for work. It's about, again, it's about process, it's loading the kiln and thinking about how each piece is going to be affected by the ash and the flame. Anagama, you know, you start thinking about it from the time you're making pots to, you know, when you're loading the kiln to when you're loading wood into the kiln. So it's a thoroughly involved process. You know, usually, I guess my strategy is I'm making pieces that will fit in various spots. So I make small pieces to larger pieces, so they'll always kind of find a right spot. Sometimes that kiln, you're getting great effects all the way throughout the kiln. I always like to put pieces in the firebox. You know, it's always a risk. We've been playing around with putting pieces into the charcoal or coals built up in the firebox and burying them in the coal. So, you know, I'll always take advantage of that. But pretty much throughout the kiln, I mean, you've got to learn the whole kiln. It's not about certain spots, but yeah, there are sweet spots.
Okay, we're here live at the Anagama kiln, also called Fat Bastard, here on campus. Now, what exactly is going on here?
Right now I'm sawing off pieces of soft brick to put the ceramic artwork on so that they don't adhere to the kiln shelves.
Okay, and how long does that usually take?
I don't know. We have a lot of pieces that are left over from the last firing. I'm just sawing these off to give to Scott to go ahead and load up the new pieces on.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll be right back.